camping while I was at Crippled Children's Hospital and School in Sioux Falls. We used to go camping quite often during the summer. After Henry came as the recreation director, he kind of saw to it that every group got to go camping at least once. And I was lucky enough that I was in Boy Scouts, so I got to go camping with Boy Scouts, and I also got to go camping with my dorm room. And once in a while would manage to get it in with other groups as well. Uh, Fairly, we had a camping spot sort of up on Lake Brandt. Someone had gifted the school a large area of land up there, and it was rented out to some farmers. And the part that was right on the lake was used as a pasture. And it was kind of interesting. It was completely unimproved. Eventually they did get a boat dock in where pontoon boat that the school was given by, I believe, a group of merchants from Yankton in that area. A really nice pontoon boat that had no seats on it, or very few, and had been altered so that the wheelchair could get in through one of the gates on it. But other than that, the area wasn't really improved. As I said, it was a cow pasture, generally yearling calves in that area, and there may have been a few others. And it was kind of interesting because most of us were maybe not exactly farm kids, but from the farming type community and had been around cows. And the type of cattle that were there were not in any way dangerous or scary or anything. They would kind of come around every once in a while, but they didn't, and if you didn't want them, you just kind of yelled at them and they'd run off or go and stuff. But it was kind of funny. Henry, who was from Brooklyn, New York, and he was scared of the cows, and if they came close, he would just panic and stuff. It was really kind of funny because he's this great big guy, and he's scared of the cows. We had a lot of fun camping. We did a lot of different things and stuff. As I said, we had the pontoon boat. They also had a smaller fishing type boat, or motor boat, motor in the rear, and just fairly low horsepower and stuff. And one time, Tony, Pepe, and I had decided we were going to go fishing in the morning, and Henry said, well, you can, but you can't run the motor without one of the adults there. And so we're like, okay. Well, we went out. Very calm morning, how it can be in South Dakota, and we get out a ways, and we're kind of fishing, and all of a sudden the wind comes up, and pretty soon it had kind of driven us into a cove area, and we were trying to paddle out of there, and it just absolutely could not, and it was just really an interesting time, and we're like panicking. Of course, there was no cell phones or anything like that back then, and we didn't have any way to communicate with Henry or anybody else. And so finally, eventually, we were trying to get the motor to start, and it wouldn't start, and it wouldn't start. But finally, Tony, it was one where you had to pull the cord, and finally Tony sat on the back thing and grabbed the cord and fell off the seat and got it to start. And I was able to keep it running once it got started, since he was on the floor of the boat. And we did manage to get out of there and get it back, and we actually got around the side back where the camp was, and were able to cut the motor and drift in. And I'm not sure Henry ever knew that actually had happened, that we actually ran the boat. But as I recall, we did tell him, and it worked out okay. Another time when we were older, and I believe when I was a senior, and we were out on the pontoon boat, and we went out, and Henry was back at the camp with some of the kids, and some of us were out on the boat, and one of the kids happened to be 19 years old. And at that time, to buy 3-2 beer in South Dakota, you had to be at least 18. Well, Tom, the orderly that was with us, and he tended to be a fairly straight-laced one, but we could persuade him once in a while, and we persuaded him that if we went over to the other side, to the little bar bait shop that was on the other side, that we'd get a 6-pack of beer. And when we got over there, the kid who was old enough. We couldn't. He was in a wheelchair, and there was no way to get to the dock so that he could get off because of just the way things were. So we did finally talk Tom into going and getting the beer, which he really didn't want to do, but we talked him into it. Okay, we're out there, and there was like 6 of us, so we each had a bottle of beer, and kids being kids, we get out, and it started getting dark, and we thought we should head back. And the boat, we were driving, just kind of motoring around, and the boat killed. The boat, and there was no oars or anything. It's a pontoon boat. There wasn't any good way to get back to shore. And so we were out there trying to get the boat started, and I happened to be the one driving, and I was trying to get the start. And by that time, it was dark. We couldn't see anything. We couldn't really tell what was going on. We only had 1 tank of gas, so we thought maybe we were out of gas, but it showed that it had gas in it. We could tell that much. And finally, Tony and Tony Pepe and Tom decided they were going to try and swim back to shore to our campsite, which we thought we had identified, and they started swimming. They get about halfway there, and Tom started tiring, and they decided to come back to the boat, and Tony was able to get back in the boat and stuff, but Tom couldn't, so it took about 3 of us to get Tom lifted back into the boat, even though he was a normal person and everything, but he was just wore out from it. Finally, I started messing around, and the boat started, so we took off and went a ways, and it died again, and what I had done, it turned out it was something with the fuel pump, and I kind of was pumping a little bit, which is difficult with a boat. Well, we started going back towards that camp that we had identified. Turned out it was the wrong camp, and we realized that when we got close to it. We finally did make it back to our camp, and a number of hours later than we were supposed to do back, and Henry happened to not be there because he was running around, had taken the bus and was trying to find us, figured out what was going on. And he had gone over to the bait shop, and the bait shop had said, well, there was a guy in here earlier that bought a 6-pack of beer. So we were pretty much busted, and we get back, and Henry was just livid. He was so upset, and we said, well, the boat wouldn't start. We had trouble running, and it just, and the next morning he went out to the boat, and something that he had done, he brought the full tank of gas that was in the bus, had brought that in and put it in the boat. And as it turned out, if we had just pressurized the fuel line, as there's a little bulb that you pump to pressurize it, that probably would have fixed the problem or at least got us back. But anyway, he puts the tank of gas in, it starts right up, and man, was he mad at us then. Because he said, it's working fine. Well, he gets out in the middle of the lake, and it did the same thing to him. And he was able to pump the thing and got it going and stuff. But anyway, long story short, it never really got reported. Tom didn't get fired. Nothing much more than that happened about it. It was, again, just regular teenage kids doing the kind of stuff that teenage kids did. A lot of it maybe we shouldn't have done, but we did. And looking back, I don't regret any of that. So